On January 10, 2013, in Valdosta, Georgia, a 17-year-old high school student by the name of Kendrick Johnson would not return home from Lowndes High School after the school day and other after-school activities were done. The following morning on the 11th, another student attending Lowndes High School was in the old gymnasium when they noticed something strange in one of the corners of the gym. In this particular corner of the gym, there were numerous rolled-up wrestling mats that stood vertical, and the student then noticed some feet wearing socks inside one of the mats. Quickly, the student went and got other students and a teacher who helped lower the standing mat to the floor, and this is when they were able to make a shocking discovery. And this shocking discovery would be fellow student Kendrick Johnson, who would unfortunately be found deceased. Other school officials and law enforcement would then be notified of the discovery, and an investigation into why this deceased 17-year-old teen was found wrapped up in a wrestling mat would begin. After the Valdosta Sheriff Department's first investigation into this case would end, they concluded that Kendrick's death was an accident, claiming Kendrick had climbed into the mat to retrieve some tennis shoes at the bottom, and in doing so, he was then trapped inside while hanging upside down, and the medical examiner would later claim Kendrick died of positional asphyxiation. There would also be two other independent autopsies conducted later on in this case by a man named Dr. Anderson, and his findings suggested that Kendrick had passed away from blunt force trauma to the neck area, which would then ultimately question the original findings of the medical examiner. As this story unfolds, we learn that Kendrick's family didn't and still doesn't believe that Kendrick's death was the result of an accident, and the family claims that Kendrick had in fact been murdered by two other students who just so happened to be brothers. Even though later on both of these boys were proven to have had ironclad alibis that day, the Johnsons were and still determined to prove the brothers had something to do with Kendrick's death. And after watching the documentary Finding Kendrick Johnson that was released in 2021, 8 years after Kendrick's passed, it's very clear that the Johnsons still stand by their claims about this case. Over the years, there has been a lot of back and forth between many people as to if Kendrick's death was an accident or a murder, but even after his case was reopened and looked at again, the case would then be closed again, stating the same results, and that this was all part of a tragic accident. So please join me on my new episode on this case as I get into Kendrick's story and a lot of other strange things that have surrounded this conflicting case. And then I will be exploring the reasonings people have for as to why Kendrick's death could have been an accident or could have been murder. And hopefully by the end of the episode, you'll be able to decide for yourself what may have happened to this young and hopeful high school teen back in 2013. I'm your host, Drew V, and please stay tuned for another episode of True Crime.